Welcome in. This is Chiefs Chase. My name is Mike Bassano, and thank you so much for joining me on a Super Bowl edition of the Midweek Blitz.
Long count. Chiefs are going to throw it. They throw it in the left leg. Cut! It's Samaje Perine at the 30. First down! And up the left sideline! I love you, Samaje Perine!
The Midweek Blitz is where we break down every storyline leading into the Kansas City Chiefs' next game. This is one of two Midweek Blitzes, as we'll have another one next week, as the Chiefs will be in New Orleans at that time. But we have a ton to cover today. All the different storylines, all the different narratives, and hear from multiple people, including Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Kareem Hunt, and Trent McDuffie. We have a ton to get to, including there is no team in NFL history that is more prepared for a Super Bowl than this year's Kansas City Chiefs team. I'll tell you why that is here in just a few minutes. But first, people are finding anything they can to make them think the Chiefs will lose this game. And lo and behold, here comes CBS with their point margin breakdown, as the Philadelphia Eagles had a point margin this year of plus 210. I think only second to the Detroit Lions at 222. And then the Chiefs had a point margin of plus 79. Now, of course, these are vastly different numbers, and CBS is using this to say, well, look out, Kansas City. It looks like Philadelphia had a better point margin this year. Let's throw this stat in the dumpster, can we? Can we just throw the point margin stat in the dumpster? It's this ridiculous thing that everybody's been talking about all year. But all year, it hasn't been a real thing. It hasn't really mattered. It's just something people use to try to make themselves feel better when they lose. They go, oh, we might not have as good of a record as the Kansas City Chiefs, but at least we have this point margin to hold on to keep us warm at night. That's what it's been all season. People cut down the Chiefs' point margin because they only want to look at ways the Chiefs can lose. That's essentially what happens when you're a dynasty, though, right? The entire NFL, all the media, everybody just looks for a reason why you're going to lose games. This is part of being a dynasty. Everyone turns against you. It's happened in every dynasty in the history of sports, from the Yankees to the Lakers to the Patriots. When you're the top dog, all anybody focuses on is who's going to beat you. In fact, Floyd Mayweather, most of the reason that Floyd Mayweather fights got such huge numbers, got so many people who bought it, is because they wanted to see somebody knock Floyd Mayweather out. Now, the difference between this and boxing is that Floyd Mayweather could get a bunch of chumps up there that had no shot. The Chiefs are going against legitimate opponents every single week, every single year, and they're still coming out on top, still coming out the dominant team in the NFL. And while that bothers everybody and sticks in their craw, oh, it does nothing but make me happy. I'm excited about this, and I love that everyone's coping so hard, whether it's trying to find a reason why the game's rigged or a reason why the referees are paid off, or look at point differential to say this is why the Eagles are better than the Chiefs. Everyone tries to find a way to cut down the big dog. That's what happens when you're on top. That's when people want to take the shots, and the Chiefs are taking them from every single direction. And you know what? That's a good thing. The good thing for the Chiefs is they got a big shield. They got a big Captain America shield named Andy Reid, who's ready for everything. That's the beauty of having an even keel coach. And we'll get to that more in depth coming up a little bit later here. But point margin is a recycled narrative from the season that ended up being debunked. The best point margin in the NFL was the Detroit Lions with 222. They got knocked out in their first playoff game. They're 0-1 this year in the playoffs. So completely debunked. The Chiefs, smallest point win margin, and they end up getting into the Super Bowl. So this is just a recycled narrative by CBS that nobody should even be talking about. But it doesn't shock me too much, because CBS is the same organization that employs Tony Romo. So if you're going to employ Tony Romo, it's hard for me to take what you say about football all that seriously, because look at what Tony Romo says every single week. Oh, I don't know, Jim. The ball hit the ground. I'm not sure if that's a catch or not, because I think it's 2001. Tony Romo all year has driven me nuts. Like, if you've been watching this show, we do a lot of discussion when it comes to Tony Romo screwing things up, especially when it went back to that Week 18 game against the Broncos, which was clearly a throwaway game by the Chiefs. It was a game where they didn't put any game plan together. They ran what was essentially a fourth quarter in the preseason type of game plan with a bunch of backups. So, of course, the Chiefs lost that game. But Romo's sitting there talking about, well, this is just a really tough day for Steve Spagnuolo. No, it's not. Steve Spagnuolo did exactly what he wanted to. So essentially my issue with Tony and with CBS is they consistently try to find reasons why the Kansas City Chiefs aren't that good. I watched an entire broadcast for the AFC Championship game that was slanted to the Buffalo Bills. So I know I'm right when I say that CBS should never be listened to by anybody that has a legitimate brain. They should be tossed out with the bathwater because nobody cares what CBS has to say. And thank goodness that we have Fox in the Super Bowl so we can have Tom Brady, somebody who actually got past the divisional round of the playoffs, Tony, that is actually going to know what they're talking about when they're breaking down this game. And we'll hear from Tom Brady later on in the show.
Otherwise, they're trying to draw him off sides.
Well, they're going for it. Here's Mahomes rolling out. It's wide open over there, and he slides for the first down. They had both Pacheco and Hunt.
Now, Patrick Mahomes has the mindset of a champion. Hear why coming up in a few minutes. But first, there's no team in NFL history that has been more prepared for the Super Bowl than this Kansas City Chiefs team. They are the most battle-tested team in the history of the NFL. Coming in this season, back-to-back champions, the biggest target imaginable on their back, when you add in especially the fanfare from Taylor Swift, all the controversy surrounding the Kansas City Chiefs. The target on their back couldn't have been larger all season. So essentially, every week, the Chiefs are playing a Super Bowl. Every other team is looking at the Kansas City Chiefs as their legitimate Super Bowl. So they've played this game every single week throughout the season. They couldn't be more prepared for this game. In fact, there is no team in the history of the league that's ever been this prepared for the Super Bowl. Every team is trying to get battle tested throughout the season, right? That's why you worry about your big games. But what the Chiefs had this year was a very unique situation where every team looked at the Chiefs as their Super Bowl. And that's why every game was close. So many people want to point at point margin. Beating the Philadelphia Eagles didn't matter to your franchise this year. Beating the Kansas City Chiefs meant everything to your franchise. So that's why playing against the Kansas City Chiefs was such a huge deal for everyone else. And that means the Chiefs had to battle their way through a grueling schedule, not only a first place schedule where they played every AFC playoff team, right? They played every single one of them. Before the playoffs even began, the Chiefs had played every AFC playoff team. And also, every other team they played looked at the Chiefs as their Super Bowl. It was their moment to make a mark and to create job security for their coaches and their players. And they still couldn't get the job done. That's the dominance of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's how battle-tested they are, and that's why I don't see any world where you could say there's a team that's more prepared for this Super Bowl than this Chiefs team. I don't think you can look throughout history and find any team that's more battle-tested and more prepared for the Super Bowl than the Kansas City Chiefs are this season. So that's an exciting moment when you think about the chances of the Chiefs winning this game, because it's a tough game. Look, I've been watching the Philadelphia Eagles tape. I've been doing all the research like I always do. It is top to bottom a stacked roster. Like, you could find issues with the Buffalo Bills, for instance, look at the Buffalo Bills. Middle of the defense, weak. The Chiefs exploited that. You saw them do that, right? They stayed away from the outside wide receivers. We saw a lot of plays go over the middle, whether it be Worthy or Smith-Schuster. They went over the middle, and that's how they carved the defense. That was a weakness for the Buffalo Bills. The Eagles don't really have a glaring weakness that you can point to. They have a lot of strengths, and then they have strengths that aren't as strong. You know what I mean? Like the goal for beating the Eagles. And we'll dive deeper into this, and we'll get to Mahomes here in a second too. But the issue here with the Eagles, the goal with beating their offense is simple yet hard, right? It's not complicated, but it's difficult. You force Jalen Hurts to beat you with his arm. That's how you beat the Eagles. You make Jalen Hurts throw the football. Now, of course, he has, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and a bunch of Dallas Goedert. He has people that can beat you through the air, but you can't let Jalen beat you with his legs, and you can't let Saquon Barkley beat you. That's incredibly important for this game. If the Chiefs shut down the running game of Jalen and Saquon, they shut down what the Eagles do well. And then you put it on Jalen's arm. And Jalen's arm, it depends on the day. right? Sometimes Jalen Hurts' arm can go all over the field and he's a monster. Other days, he's going to have some trouble. Maybe accidentally fumble the ball right to Nick Bolton for a scoop and score.
It's on a quarterback draw. Nowhere to go. The ball is loose. Sitting on the turf. It's picked up by Bolton. No one in front of him is going to score.
That's a big factor when it comes to playing in this game. There aren't a lot of weaknesses when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. So what do the Chiefs have to point to that makes you feel like, okay, well, what do the Chiefs have? Well, they have Andy, who's much better than Nick Sirianni, right? And they have Patrick Mahomes. But on top of all of that, they have the most battle-tested team that you've ever seen in the entire NFL in history. There's never been a team more battle-tested than the Kansas City Chiefs. And that has to give you a lot of confidence going into this Super Bowl, knowing that they've already played, 20 of them? Let's go, right? It's exciting. Now, moving on, Patrick Mahomes has the mindset of a champion, and it really shows us how lucky the Chiefs are. Here's Patrick Mahomes.
This one in particular, it's just when you're on that stage and you're celebrating, you start thinking about the guys that are coming back. You think about how young that football team was last year, and you knew that we had a chance to be in this position. And even though you're winning, you're enjoying that moment, you enjoy it, but at the same time, you have a bigger picture of your entire career, and I want to have as many chances as I can to be in the Super Bowl. And it's cool to have guys like Chris and Trav that I've kind of spent my entire career with and won all these games with, and there's a few others with James, Winchester, and Harrison, and I'm probably forgetting someone here or there, but it's cool to have these guys. We built such a great friendship and almost become a family.
Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback everybody wishes they had. He takes a pay cut. He wants to build up the rest of the entire team because he wants to win championships. It's not just about money for Patrick Mahomes. He takes a pay cut because he wants titles. That's his focus. And every year in the NFL, in any sport, all we want is to see an athlete who's so focused on winning, so obsessed with winning. It feels like us as fans, right? They feel like us. They care that the team wins. They aren't just trying to line their pockets, and that's Patrick Mahomes. That's why the Chiefs have this great roster and a defense they can lean on, because Patrick Mahomes doesn't break the bank. And to put that in perspective, Patrick Mahomes had a cap hit of $37 million this year. Dak Prescott for the Dallas Cowboys had a cap hit of $67 million, and he's going to have $90 million next year. So that puts into perspective the amount of money that Patrick Mahomes is leaving on the table because he wants to win titles. That's the type of quarterback that everybody wishes they had. That's the type of player, the type of star that everybody wishes were on their football team. And that's what creates so much anger and vitriol towards Patrick Mahomes, is because people wish they had a Patrick Mahomes. They wish they had somebody who would sacrifice for the team, sacrifice for their legacy, and sacrifice for the betterment of their team and what they can accomplish. So many guys don't make that sacrifice, and I'm not asking them to. I don't think anybody could rightfully ask somebody to leave $30 million on the table like Patrick Mahomes did this year, because that's the difference between Mahomes and Prescott. $30 million. Now, that $30 million, where did it go? Well, DeAndre Hopkins is on the team. Hollywood Brown is on the team. You have a defense that's stacked top to bottom without any real holes or weaknesses. So I think the money's been pretty well spent at getting the Chiefs ready for a Super Bowl run. And now here we are in February, late January, February, depending. I'm recording this on the 31st. So yeah, whatever. February. Here we are in February, and all of that sacrifice from Patrick Mahomes has come to fruition. Him taking a pay cut, wanting to be the greatest Super Bowl champion of all time, that's worked out in spades for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the reason people don't like it is because they wish their quarterback would do the same. How much better would the Dallas Cowboys be if Dak Prescott took a $30 million hit and made the exact same amount that Patrick Mahomes made this year? How much better could the Cowboys have been? Add $30 million worth of other players. The Chiefs get to do that because Patrick Mahomes is the most gracious, the most important, and the most giving quarterback in the NFL. Because somebody who's that obsessed with winning, someone who's like, yeah, money's great, but I want to win football games. That's the kind of guy that we want. That's the kind of guy everybody wants to be their quarterback. A guy who cares about winning, who cares about legacy, and cares about being the greatest of all time more than he cares about money. It's a very rare thing to find in sports. Tom Brady did it with the Patriots. There's a formula available Take a pay cut as a quarterback and you can go win Super Bowls. Tom Brady made the blueprint. So I don't want to give credit. This isn't invented by Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes followed the Tom Brady blueprint. Take a little bit of a pay cut and go win titles. A lot of guys don't want to take that pay cut, and they're not winning titles. And then their fans sit back and go, well, the game's rigged. The Chiefs have the refs on payroll. The NFL likes Taylor Swift. No, your quarterback is an overpaid baby that doesn't care about winning. And Patrick Mahomes isn't. That's the difference between the Chiefs and everybody else. Patrick Mahomes doesn't take $67 million like Dak Prescott. He takes $30 million less at 37 and then takes the Chiefs to a Super Bowl. That's the quarterback everybody wishes they had, and of course they're going to be sour about it because they don't get to have him. Beautifully done by Patrick Mahomes. If you're raising a son, daughter, doesn't matter. If you're raising a child right now, you could point to Patrick Mahomes and say, that's what sacrifice for greatness looks like. That's what putting yourself and your needs as a human being, you have to ask yourself, where am I happiest? Where is my happiness coming from? If it's coming from an extra $30 million, then fine. If it's coming from greatness, be willing to take that pay cut. Why don't you ask Tyreek Hill how happy he is in Miami? He's got a lot of money. But is he happy? He doesn't look it. He looks frustrated. He looks helpless. He looks like he signed into a situation where he knows he can't win. And Patrick Mahomes takes a pay cut so that he knows every year he has a shot. And that right there, man, that's got to get you going as a Chiefs fan. That's got to get you fired up to know that Patrick Mahomes is willing to take that cut so that the Chiefs can be competitive every single year. And it's working, right? It's working. Brett Veach is working his magic. Andy and Spags are working their magic. And now you have a roster that can compete for a title every year. This is the dream, baby. We are living the dream in Kansas City, and there's nothing like it.
Mahomes still has it. To the 5, and in for the touchdown.
That's a champion right there, man. Now, the Chiefs have a link in their dynasty chain. And it's a link that's been kind of missing in the last few years, but I think it might have been filled. We'll tell you what that is coming up here in just a few minutes. But the Chiefs have taken a very coveted crown in the NFL because the Chiefs are more hated than the Patriots ever were because they don't have a scandal. It used to be you could call the Patriots cheaters, and that was just a fact. It made it easy when talking about the New England Patriots. It made it easy to stomach their greatness for a while because you knew you could just point to any of their many scandals and say, yeah, but they're cheating. The Chiefs have zero scandals. They have zero evidence of cheating. So it sticks so much harder in everybody else's soul that they can't beat the Kansas City Chiefs because there isn't an excuse. They don't have an excuse like the Patriots did. We could say, well, they were spying on teams before the Super Bowl, and that's why they beat the Rams, which is true. And we could point to all the things that they did and all the scandals that they had and say, well, this is why they were able to be good. You can't do that with the Chiefs. You can't point to the Chiefs and say, this is why things didn't work out for them. You can't point to say, oh, well, this is why we didn't win. No, you can't point to the Chiefs and go, well, this is why things didn't work out for us. They were cheating. No, the Chiefs aren't cheating. So you're trying to invent a scandal. You invent conspiracies when you get your tail kicked. We've learned that in the world. When people lose, they want to find a reason why they didn't lose. And that's what's happening here. It's a bunch of toddlers, a bunch of people that can't handle losing, so they find excuses as to why they are losing. They can't just say, oh, well, our quarterback won't take a pay cut like Patrick Mahomes, so our roster isn't as stacked as the Chiefs, which is the truth. They're going to say the referees bailed them out. I saw it. Even though we can point to 5 or 6 missed calls that the Bills should have had thrown on them in that game, in the AFC Championship game, you're still going to hold on to that little glimmer of hope that you might be as good as the Kansas City Chiefs. But the absolute fact is, you're not. I'm sorry. You're not as good. And if you were, you'd beat them. That's the issue that every Buffalo Bills fan has right now. And honestly, where'd they go? My goodness, every Buffalo Bills fan I'd ever heard of in my entire life, anybody I'd ever crossed paths with, was in my DMs, texting me, talking all kinds of trash before the game. After the game, I'm a classy person. I didn't say one thing to them. I didn't send them one message. I didn't say one word. I haven't heard anything from them. All I heard was them talking trash. So I just said, hey, we'll see you. We'll see you at Arrowhead. And guess what? Arrowhead stayed Arrowhead. Who's going to call it Allenhead? I heard somebody in the media, might have been some clown. I don't know who it was. I just saw somebody's going to, Arrowhead's going to be Allen Head.
Yeah, we'll give him one right here.
Here you go.
How about those? That's what I'm talking about, baby.
This is the Chiefs derangement syndrome problem we have right now, man. Everybody's coming up with a reason why the Chiefs aren't going to win. Everybody wants to try to cut down the Chiefs. And that comes from the jealousy over a dynasty. And this has happened in every dynasty. It's so interesting to me. Like, it's whiners versus logical people. People who are upset that they were wrong all year about the Chiefs being frauds versus the smart people who knew the entire year that the Chiefs were the most dominant team in the NFL because instead of looking at highlights and point margins, we actually watched the games. Most of the people you're listening to on TV, they watch highlight packages. They get notes fed to them and they follow narratives. They don't actually have any idea what they're talking about or any real knowledge of what happened in the game. So they're just following and parroting what everybody else says. It's lazy, and while it might get them plenty of money at their job and good for them, it doesn't make them credible. So listen to people who actually watch the games and people who pay attention, because I've been right the entire year about the Kansas City Chiefs. And all these clowns that are now sitting around calling it rigged, they were wrong. And that's what happens when people are wrong. They try to find reasons why they weren't wrong, and they become whiny little... I almost said something I'm not supposed to say. Whiny little whiners. We'll go with that. They're becoming whiny little whiners. And here's the deal. I'm getting charged up, man. Here's the deal. If they had watched every Chiefs game this year, they would have known better than to pick against the Chiefs. But they don't watch the games. They just follow narratives and parrot what everybody tells them to. And that's why you watch them and go, my gosh, do these guys have any idea what they're talking about? I understand why you asked that question. Because the answer to your question is no. They do not have any idea what they're talking about. They're watching highlight packages and getting notes from their producer. If they did real work and actually watched Chiefs games, they would have a much better idea of what's going on, but they don't. Also, the Chiefs being the most hated team, more hated than the Patriots dynasty ever was, and the Chiefs have everybody praying for a Spygate. They're praying for a Deflategate. In fact, some people, I even saw this go viral. Somebody saying, well, I'd like to apologize to the Patriots and the Patriots fans because the Chiefs are way more insufferable than they were. That's not true. That's recency bias, because could you imagine if Andy Reid was spying on opposing teams illegally and Patrick Mahomes was illegally tampering with the footballs, and the Chiefs had a backup tight end murdering people? It'd be all anyone was talking about. But you don't have those things to talk about. There is no Spygate. There is no Deflategate. There is no Aaron Hernandez. So all you have to talk about is the referees, which is the saddest narrative in the world, because you could cherry pick calls from any NFL game and you're going to find missed calls, because referees are human. And they protect quarterbacks. They protect Josh Allen, by statistics, more than any quarterback in the NFL. And I don't know why Josh Allen gets such a pass. I don't get it. What's up this? Joe Burrow doesn't get that pass. Lamar Jackson doesn't get that pass. Why does Josh Allen get all these passes? Where's Lamar Jackson's pass? Lamar Jackson played well enough to beat the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round. Yeah, he had his issues, but he played well enough to win that game. Mark Andrews let him down, and some other things let him down. But reality is, Lamar Jackson is a better quarterback than Josh Allen. Josh Allen just gets protected by the league and the media. Nobody wants Josh Allen to succeed more than the NFL. The numbers sustain that, right? He has more roughing the passer penalties than any quarterback in the NFL since he entered the league. So Josh Allen is, by the numbers, the most protected quarterback in the NFL. Don't tell anyone else that, though, because they'll say you're lying and the Chiefs are the only team that ever get any calls and everybody's just against us. It sounds like a child, right? It sounds like a child in a sandbox that doesn't want to leave the park. And you're like, listen, we have to leave the park. And they're like, you're against me. The whole world's against me. That's legitimately what I watch every day on TV, on social media. It doesn't matter where it is. It's just people losing their minds because they can't wrap their head around the fact that the Chiefs are better than them. And that's the saddest thing about all this. It's not based in reality. None of this is based in reality. It's cherry-picked calls that you could pull from any game. Pull it from any game. But you have all these guys that don't do their jobs. They just watch highlight packages and take notes from their producers. They have no idea what's actually going on. And if you listen to them, you have no idea what's going on either. I'm sorry. You've been lied to that those guys are experts, but they're not, because they're not watching full games. I can't stress that enough. All right, moving on from the recency bias. My God, I couldn't believe that when I saw, this is way worse than the Patriots. Really? Where's our murderer? I'm sorry. But come on. Could you imagine? Good Lord. I think people come down on Rashee Rice a lot, which, look, what happened in the offseason with him was terrible, and it could have gone a lot worse. But the point is, the Chiefs don't have anything like what the Patriots had. It was just less controversial because when you called the Patriots cheaters, it was a fact. So there's not another side. This is an interesting thing. And then we'll move on. I'll make this last point, and then we'll move on to the last link in the dynasty chain. We'll get to that here in just a second. But it's so interesting. I think what makes the Chiefs a more hated and more interesting team than... Let me rephrase that. What makes the Chiefs more hated than the Patriots is that there's a discussion about whether or not they're cheaters. When people called the Patriots cheaters, it was a fact. It wasn't some fiction idea made up because you saw a few bad calls from cherry-picked games. No. It was because the Patriots were actually cheaters. So when you told a Patriots fan, hey, you're a cheater, your team cheats, they just go, yeah. Because it's a fact. It's proven. You did spy on the Rams. You spied on multiple teams in Spygate. Tom Brady did deflate footballs. And you had multiple things and scandals hovering over your franchise for the entirety of their dynasty. The Chiefs don't have any of those things. So it's a lot harder and a lot tougher for opposing fan bases because Chiefs fans can go, you're crazy. What are you talking about? The Chiefs aren't cheating. Because they're not. That's what makes the Chiefs harder to deal with for NFL fans than the Patriots, because the Chiefs have never been caught cheating. The Chiefs have never been in a scandal that involves them at all tipping the scales illegally in an NFL game. So it's harder for people to stomach it. It just is. Now, the only coach that I actively root against in the entire NFL is the one the Chiefs are playing against in the Super Bowl. We'll explain why and discuss the whole gambit of Nick Sirianni coming up here in just a few minutes. But first, the Chiefs have a link in their dynasty chain that I think may have been filled permanently.
There from the 11, first down. Pass, Worthy, touchdown! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Because I was asked this question by somebody this week. They go, who is the Chiefs' Julian Edelman? Because I like Julian. Who doesn't like Julian Edelman? He's like the most likable guy ever, right? Who doesn't love Jules? So I was thinking, who is the Chiefs' Julian Edelman? I mean, it might have been Tyreek Hill at one point, sort of, but really, it's interchangeable. A few years ago, it was Juju Smith-Schuster. Last year, it was Rashee Rice. And this year, it's Xavier Worthy. But I think that this year, it might be it. I think the Chiefs might have found that link in Xavier Worthy. He's just like Julian Edelman, but he is a much faster version. And that catch, the most controversial catch in the AFC Championship game that really shouldn't have been a controversy if it weren't for CBS, that catch was a very Julian Edelman-like catch.
Mahomes was looking that way, breaking down, able to get rid of it. And somehow, at the end, I think the Bills, no, they're going to say Worthy has possession.
Right, where you go, oh my God, how did he do that? So what Xavier Worthy is showing is not only is he exactly like Julian Edelman when it comes to catching the ball, but he's also like Julian Edelman, except he's the fastest guy that's ever been at the NFL Combine. So he's like a Julian Edelman 2.0, and the Chiefs have him in his rookie season. Xavier Worthy has been on fire, and he's become that Julian Edelman for Patrick Mahomes this year, and I think he's going to continue to be that guy for the Kansas City Chiefs. I couldn't be happier for what Xavier Worthy has accomplished this season with Kansas City, and here he is at the podium just yesterday talking about what this season has meant to him for Kansas City in his rookie year.
Just my mentality. I go out there just trying to prove everybody wrong. I was coming in to the season doubted. Everybody said, oh, he's not fit to be a big-time receiver. He's too small. He's injury prone. I feel like I proved everybody wrong, and I'm going to continue to prove everybody wrong.
Xavier Worthy is the perfect fit for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's someone who was doubted. Even being the fastest player at the NFL Combine, he was doubted for being too small, too injury prone, that he couldn't be an every down wide receiver. And what he's turned into is the Kansas City Chiefs' Julian Edelman, a faster version, a more dynamic version. But the way that they use him all throughout the field and the way that they use him crossing over the middle is just like the Patriots used to use Julian Edelman. So he's a link in this dynasty that I think has been filled beautifully. Over the last few years, the Chiefs have been trying to replace Tyreek Hill, and I think they've done it effectively in Xavier Worthy, because not only has he been dynamic this year, he has been incredibly savvy for a rookie. He's been in the right place at the right time. Patrick knows where he's going to be. He knows how to improvise along with Patrick. They're starting to think with the same brain at the perfect time. They're going into the Super Bowl with Xavier Worthy, a rookie who's no longer really a rookie because of all the great experience he's had with the Kansas City Chiefs. So he is, I think, the missing link that keeps this dynasty going for years going forward. And that's the beauty of this Kansas City Chiefs team. When somebody leaves and you think, oh man, this is going to really hurt the team, somebody else steps up. That's beautiful drafting by Brett Veach, beautiful coaching by Andy Reid, and a great job by Patrick Mahomes developing chemistry with his young wide receiver that everybody should be looking to play against the Philadelphia Eagles. Because as good as the Eagles are in the secondary, they have nobody who's fast enough to keep up with Xavier Worthy. That's the facts. They don't have one player who's fast enough to keep up with Xavier Worthy. They have look, Cooper DeJean's great. Darius Slay is great. But can they keep up with them? On a straight line speed situation, absolutely not. Darius Slay might have to cover him. And if he does, well, then you have DeAndre Hopkins. Well, then you also have Hollywood Brown. Oh, and then you have Juju Smith-Schuster and Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. This team is too stacked with talent for any one wide receiver to get keyed on for the Philadelphia Eagles. And that means that the Kansas City Chiefs have a decisive advantage when it comes to attacking that Eagles secondary, because as good as the secondary is, the Chiefs just have too many weapons, and all of them are finally healthy. Everybody is going to be on the field in the Super Bowl, ready to rock and roll, and I think it's going to be very tough for the Philadelphia Eagles to key on Xavier Worthy. So he's going to continue to, I think, be the most productive wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, there's one coach that I actively root against. Do that in a second. Also, the Chiefs have one man that no active player in the NFL can beat. I'll tell you who that is coming up in a moment. It's an interesting one. I like this one. It's gonna be fun. But first, there's only one coach in the NFL that I actively root against. And that's Nick Sirianni of the Philadelphia Eagles. This guy is so obnoxious in every sense of the word. It's as if a drunk Eagles fan was allowed to coach the team and then ended up being kind of good at it. That's Nick Sirianni. And we all remember what he did when they beat the Chiefs in the regular season just a couple of years ago. Or was it last year? It was. It was last year in the regular season to avenge their Super Bowl loss. Here's Nick Sirianni being obnoxious.
Hey, I don't hear anymore! Chiefs fans!
I never want Nick Sirianni to have success, ever. If you want to call out Chiefs fans, you're acting like a child. You're acting like a player, a young player, but you're the head coach of the team. And by the way, the Eagles' entire season fell apart after that, probably because some players on the team felt like they had a child as their head coach, and those players would be 1,000% correct, because that's who Nick Sirianni is. He's a child. He throws tantrums, and we see it on the sideline this year. We saw it in the tunnel against the Kansas City Chiefs last year, and we saw it in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, because he gets too high and too low emotionally, and his team feeds off of that. And that's why the Eagles blew the game against the Chiefs 2 years ago, and it's why they'll blow the game against the Chiefs again, because Nick Sirianni in the end will always let his emotions get the best of him, and even keel Andy Reid will always stay steady. That's going to be the difference in this Super Bowl, and that's why the Philadelphia Eagles will be handed yet another loss on the biggest stage by the Kansas City Chiefs. Nick Sirianni, here's the thing. If you watch that mic'd up from the last Super Bowl, it'll show you exactly what I mean. His energy is super high when they're doing well, and it's super low when they're doing poorly. Your team feeds off that energy. If you watch the Chiefs sideline, Andy Reid does nothing. It's almost infuriating at some points because you want him to get angry sometimes. But it's the perfect way for a team to win a Super Bowl, is to have an even keel head coach, someone who's just right there. And, that's the way it is in business. It's the way it is in industries. If you want to be champions, you can be really high emotional, or you can be highly emotional, and you can be pretty successful. But if you want to reach the top, you have to keep those emotions in check. I'm not saying don't have them. Andy Reid doesn't not have emotions. I'm sure Andy Reid is probably one of the most emotional people in the entire NFL. You can't be that driven without having high emotions. But Andy keeps his emotions in check. He keeps his ego in check, and he understands that it's for the greater good of the football team for him to have an even keel demeanor. Nick Sirianni doesn't get that. Nick Sirianni is a drunk Eagles fan who suddenly got the job and did pretty well at it. But his emotions and his inability to control his emotions will be the undoing of the Philadelphia Eagles. I guarantee it. When you watch this game and we go back and we see things, we watch the mic'd up, you're going to see Sirianni losing his mind up and down the whole game. The team feeds off that, so his team goes up and down. The only thing they've had going for them that's helped neutralize that in the playoffs is Saquon Barkley running roughshod over people so that Nick Sirianni's emotions don't really matter because Saquon Barkley's too busy running 80 yards to the end zone. So that's what's neutralized Nick Sirianni's emotional outbursts this year is Saquon Barkley. But if the Chiefs can take Saquon out or at least contain Saquon, it will expose Nick Sirianni for the whiny child that he is because he is not even keel enough to be a championship football coach. I'll say that until I'm blue in the face all day.
Here, Jim. Whole season for Buffalo on the line here. They come. He just desperately throws it up in the air. Incomplete. Kincaid was right there.
There are signs that the Chiefs dynasty is just getting started. That's a wild thought, isn't it? That the Chiefs dynasty is just getting... It's so weird, but we'll explain why coming up here in just a few minutes. First, though, the Chiefs have one man that nobody active in the NFL can beat. I say nobody active... and you'll find out why. It's painful, but it's a great point. Steve Spagnuolo. In Spags we trust. This man has been incredible, and everybody on the Chiefs know it, including star all-pro cornerback Trent McDuffie.
For Coach Spags calls a blitz, I'm usually pretty confident. I think especially late in the games, he does it very well where you never know what side the blitz is coming. Guys may say, yeah, they're going to blitz, but you don't know which way it's coming. And I heard the O-lineman actually check the protection the other way, and right after that, I was like, we got him. So when I blitzed, Jay Reed was in front of me, George was in front of me, so I was just like, you know what? Let me just back up. I don't even blitz no more. Y'all already got him, and yeah, it was just a good feeling.
Thank you to Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City for that audio. Now, Trent McDuffie makes a great point here. When Spags calls a blitz, you already know it's the best blitz possible because he's Steve Spagnuolo. If there's anybody that's earned the right to call as many blitzes as he wants to, as many coverage disguises as he wants to, and as many hijinks as he wants to, it is Steve Spagnuolo, the man that we want to have a statue of outside of Arrowhead Stadium. And I'm dead serious about that. I think it's a failure if the Chiefs don't have a Spag statue. Obviously an Andy statue, a Travis statue, a Patrick statue, and probably a Chris Jones statue too. But you need Spags in that group because he is so incredibly important for this Kansas City Chiefs franchise. The reason why the Chiefs have been so great is not only because of the offense, the defense has been phenomenal. Even with a secondary that's been a revolving door for the most part throughout this dynasty, it has stayed consistent because of one man, Steve Spagnuolo. Also give Brett Veach credit for finding guys at all rounds of the NFL draft who contribute on the defensive side instantly in their rookie years. That deserves a lot of credit too. But we know they get up to speed fast, right? Those guys get up to speed and they get ready. And by mid-season, those rookies don't even look like rookies anymore. Who do you think does that? Steve Spagnuolo. That's why we want the statue, baby. And the reason I say there's no one active in the NFL that can get ready for Steve Spagnuolo and really understand how hard it is to beat a Steve Spagnuolo defense is because there's one man who's no longer active in the NFL that understood how to do it very, very well. And as painful as this is, here is Tom Brady on the herd with Colin Cowherd.
Josh has kind of got to see that. Or am I being a sports guy who just doesn't get it?
It's a great question. This speaks to a lot of things you and I have talked about over this last year. Unless a quarterback has total operational control of what he's doing, it's going to be very hard against the Spagnuolo defense because Spags is going to put so much pressure on the protections and on the offensive line and on the quarterback to sort things out after the snap because some things look a bit unconventional. They're all on the right and they come to the left. They're all on the left and they come from the right. And everyone's spinning the defense at the snap of the ball. And it gets very difficult for the quarterback if you're not anticipating where the problems might be. I just remember the Super Bowl I played against Spags when I was at the Bucks late in the career. I felt like I'd studied so much film for 2 weeks. There was really no blitz he could use that I wasn't going to be prepared for. And when something looked a little funky based on my film study, I had an answer for it. And I had tried to have answers to his pressures. But that took a veteran quarterback who had a great understanding of the protections. You know, blitzing in the NFL now has been very effective. I don't think many quarterbacks have understandings of protections. I don't think we're allowing them to develop, and that now they're kind of learning on the fly, and it's a rough place to learn out there on the playing field against a team that has as many talented players as the Chiefs.
Tom Brady's so true, yet so hurtful, because he's right. When he went up against Spags, he had a lot of those things figured out. We know that game, the Chiefs Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, was lost by the offensive line. That's an absolute fact. Injuries devastated the offensive line, and you went up against one of the greatest pass rushes in the history of football. Dead serious. They had Devin White coming off the edge, JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, and Dominican Sue. And I'm not even naming all of them, but there's other guys I'm forgetting off the top of my head. They were stacked as far as pass rushers for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Chiefs' offensive line was atrocious. So that's why the Chiefs only scored 9 points. However, the Bucs did put up 31, and that's because Tom Brady's Tom Brady. And he's right. Quarterbacks now, they can't even come close to competing with Steve Spagnuolo. Tom Brady understood how to dissect the defense. He understood how to react after the snap. Tom Brady put in the work and had the understanding of football and the understanding of protection packages that he could actually be very good against Steve Spagnuolo. I don't think there's a quarterback in the NFL that can still do that against Steve Spagnuolo. I don't think there's a quarterback left because of the lack of understanding that players have of the game now. I think that there's not a quarterback in the NFL that can deal with Steve Spagnuolo. And we're proving it, right? We're seeing it be proven every week. Every single time there's not a quarterback that can deal with Steve Spagnuolo. He's beaten all of them. He beat Lamar Jackson this year. He beat Joe Burrow. He beat Josh Allen. Want to go down the list? We can keep going. Beat Bo Nix. I think that matters. Bo Nix is a really good quarterback. In that first game, he did a really good job at containing Bo Nix. When they had the starters and the game plan and everything out there, that was a low-scoring game. So I don't think there's a quarterback in the NFL that can really dissect what Steve Spagnuolo does to you. And the only reason Tom was able to do it so well is because he had 2 weeks and 20-plus years of NFL experience going into that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. That's a tough situation for Spags to go against, a tough situation for the Chiefs defense to go against. And thankfully, they aren't going to have that this time. So what really this game comes down to, if Spags is the key, because if Spags can stop Saquon Barkley and make Jalen Hurts throw the ball to beat you, you have a very good chance of winning that game. Jalen can still throw the ball well, and that's still going to make it a very tough game. But containing Saquon Barkley and making Jalen throw the ball, that is going to be the key in this game. And I think the whole thing is going to come down to, can Steve Spagnuolo find a way to contain Saquon Barkley in a way that seemingly no one else has been able to do? That's a huge key for this. Saquon's a monster. Every time I watch Saquon Barkley, I'm like, how is he a human? How is he not from another planet? It's like a racehorse in a human's body with the intelligence of a super being. How is this a real thing? So if Steve Spagnuolo can stop Saquon Barkley, that will be the absolute key to the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. Make Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm, which he's pretty good at, but that's the only route to victory for the Kansas City Chiefs, is to stop Saquon Barkley. And that, I think, is the tallest order. That is the tallest order. Sorry, let me say this again. I'm getting all flustered. I'm fired up. Stopping Saquon Barkley, that is the tallest order that Steve Spagnuolo's had to fill the entire season. So it's going to be a massively important thing to see. He has not had to do something like this for the entire year. The Chiefs have played really good running backs, but they haven't played anybody like Saquon Barkley with the Philadelphia Eagles, because that guy is on another level. So that is the massive thing for Spags. And why would we doubt Spags? In Spags, we trust forever because he gets it done every single time. Build him the statue, especially if he finds a way to curtail Saquon Barkley, because nobody else has. It's a big order. It's a tall order. This whole game is a tall order. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, dude, it's right down the middle. But the Chiefs have Mahomes. That's like the number one thing I keep coming back to. Jalen Hurts, he's not even a top 10 quarterback. The roster for the Philadelphia Eagles, top to bottom, best in the NFL. I'm just being honest. It's the best in the NFL. But their quarterback play isn't at the level of Kansas City, and their coaching isn't at the level of Kansas City. So despite the Eagles having, I think, the best roster in the NFL, the Chiefs still have the edge in the most important categories, which is quarterback and coaching. Now, we need to revisit a trade that only shows how full of it the Chiefs haters truly are. But first, there's a chance the Chiefs dynasty goes on for another 10 years because the key components here are Andy, Spags, and Mahomes, right? You'll lose Kelsey soon. Maybe this year, maybe next year. We don't know. But you'll lose Kelsey soon. You'll lose Chris Jones relatively soon. He's in his 30s now. He plays defensive tackle. He might get 4 or 5 years left. That would be huge if you get 4 or 5 years out of Chris Jones. But at a high level, Chris Jones, maybe 2, right? But the main components of this dynasty are Andy, Brett Veach too. Let's put Brett Veach in there as GM because there's just a lot of guys that come in and play really well despite being drafted like Hicks. Hicks is a great example on defense. Drafted in the 4th round out of Wazoo, comes in, plays awesome. So there's a lot of guys that come into this Chiefs team that play well right away, and that goes to Brett Veach. But then you have Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Patrick Mahomes. There's no reason to believe these guys can't keep going. There's no reason to believe they can't keep filling holes because they keep filling it with stars. Xavier Worthy, breakout star of the season. How are we to sit here and think that won't keep happening? Rashee Rice, breakout star of the year before. Isaiah Pacheco, breakout star of the year before. Every year there's a rookie for the Kansas City Chiefs that's a breakout star. As long as the Chiefs keep reloading like that in the offseason, this dynasty's not going anywhere for another 10 years. As long as Mahomes can play and Andy can coach and Spags can coach and Brett Veach can stay at GM, all the pieces are in place for the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty to ascend for the next decade and really tick off everybody, which is just an extra bonus to the Chiefs winning so many Super Bowls. So the excitement for me is huge, and the dread for everybody else should also be huge because the Kansas City Chiefs have all the pieces to keep this thing going for a very, very long time. Also, you pepper it in free agents. They're great at peppering in free agents, whether it's DeAndre Hopkins or Tyrann Mathieu or Frank Clark or Juju Smith-Schuster. The Chiefs are great at peppering in these veteran free agents while Brett Veach drafts amazing players to keep building the nucleus of the Kansas City Chiefs. As long as that keeps happening, there's no reason to think the Chiefs dynasty will stop for a very long time.
Travels 45, Remigio able to shake off the first tackle. Boy, he's some returner, this kid. There he goes, down the sideline. Remigio still on his feet. And finally clobbered from behind.
Now, one huge thing to watch in the Super Bowl for Travis Kelce. We have that coming up here in just a bit. We're winding down a little bit, but this show is going to go a little longer because it's a fun show. We got a lot to talk about. But first of all, we need to revisit the Tyreek Hill trade. Now, the Chiefs got a lot of good players from the Tyreek Hill trade, including Trent McDuffie. There's a lot to go into with that. But we're going to leave that for now. We're going to focus just on what's happened for the Kansas City Chiefs as a whole since the Tyreek Hill trade and what's happened for Tyreek Hill. When the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs were left for dead. I know that sounds insane now because the Chiefs have back-to-back Super Bowls, but if you go back to when the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, going into that season, in the 2022 season, where they ended up winning the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles, if you go back to that time, you will see how freaking awesome it is that everyone was wrong. I'm telling you. Since that time, real quickly, the Chiefs are going to their 3rd straight Super Bowl after winning 2 back-to-back, and Tyreek Hill has won a grand total of 0 playoff games. That's why when we talk about legacy and being happy is oftentimes more important than money. Now that also is if you're going to make money anyway, right? Like we talked about with Patrick Mahomes. He made $37 million this year while Dak Prescott made $67 million. Both of them are doing just fine, but Mahomes wants to win. That's why he takes that pay cut, because he cares about winning, and he realizes that happiness of competing for a championship is way more valuable than an extra $30 million. Most people don't feel that way. Mahomes does, which is what makes us so lucky. Tyreek Hill didn't feel that way. Tyreek Hill didn't care enough about winning championships to stay in Kansas City. He wanted to get his bag. He got his $120 million. He went to Miami. Good for him. Do you think he's happier? Because he doesn't seem like it. I've seen his podcast. I've seen his posts on social media, and it doesn't seem like Tyreek Hill's happier being in a desolate disaster in Miami that isn't even going to the playoffs versus being in a dynasty in Kansas City with the Chiefs. So, with that said, I think this actually helps show how full of it Chiefs haters are. When the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins, Barstool Sports picked them to finish dead last in the AFC West. So of course Dave Portnoy wants to boycott the NFL and boycott the Kansas City Chiefs. He's wrong all the time. If the Chiefs keep proving him wrong, of course he hates them. I would hate somebody too if they kept making me look like an idiot. I would hate somebody too if they always put egg all over my face every time I picked against them. I would hate somebody too if they bet against me every single week, or if I bet against them every single week and then still they just made my money go away because I couldn't figure out that the Kansas City Chiefs were the dynamic dynasty that they were always supposed to be, and I was a sniveling prick living in Miami and not knowing anything about football. Sorry, Dave Portnoy has triggered me this week. I just can't. This boycott stuff is so stupid. And if people do boycott the Super Bowl, good. Let them boycott the Super Bowl. Take your ball and go home, you children. You're toddlers that can't handle losing. So you're like, I'm just going to go home. It's amazing to feel superior or in any way an adult when you're watching a game and you go, I'm just going to pick up my ball and go home because it didn't go the way that I wanted it to. So I'm going to make excuses and call it rigged. This is my Dave Portnoy voice, by the way. My Dave Portnoy voice. This is what that is. I'm just going to go home and call it rigged. And I'm going to get on my platform and say the NFL should be boycotted. That's how he sounds. Every time. Have you noticed? Even when we're reviewing the pizzas, I'm reviewing one bite. Everyone knows the rules. That's how he sounds every time. Dave Portnoy. But of course, when Barstool Sports in the 2022 season picked the Chiefs to finish dead last in the AFC West after they traded Tyreek Hill, being proven wrong again and again and again, yeah, it's going to gnaw at somebody a little bit. And clearly, it's gnawing at Dave Portnoy, and it's gnawing at all the other DraftKings fans that don't actually know anything about football. They just make bets and pretend to know things about football when they get lucky and win out of 1 out of 10. That's the truth. They're winning 1 out of every 10 bets, and they're like, yeah, check out this winning ticket. They don't post the 10 losing ones. They post the one they won. They don't post you the one where they lost all their money. They post you the one where they made 10% of it back, because that's how pathetic these DraftKings fans are. They don't know any better. They don't watch the game objectively. And by the way, I've been there. I'm speaking from experience. I don't bet on football anymore. Do you know why? Because it rots your brain when you bet on football. I'm dead serious. I've been offered, since starting this show, I have been offered deals to present you with somewhere to bet, somewhere to gamble on sports. Not going to say who, but I've been presented the opportunity to make money on this show by presenting you where to bet. To tell you to go bet on sports, and these are my picks, and I'm doing it. I said no. I've said no to quite a few things. Why? Because the purity of this show matters to me. That's one. But more than anything, when it comes to betting, it shifts your perspective of how you watch the game. You're no longer objective. Everything you watch is slanted toward whoever you're betting on. And that's a terrible way to watch football. It takes all the joy out of football. I think fantasy football does this to a lot of people too. I still play fantasy, but I don't really care about it. It's one of those things where I'm like, doesn't matter. Also, I had the first overall pick this year. It took CMC like everybody else did with the first overall pick. So my season was cooked from the second I took the first overall pick. Everybody got to take 2 players before I got to take 1. That's what happened to everybody who picked first overall this year. So it's whatever. But the point is, when you're watching a game with money on it, everything you do is going to be slanted. And that's part of why so many people are excited. That's part of why so many people are so dead set on saying the Kansas City Chiefs are cheating and that the NFL is rigged, because they watch their games through the focus of their bets. So everything they see is slanted. I'm not slanted. I'm a Chiefs fan, but I'm not betting on these games. I'm watching them objectively and giving you the best opinions I can from an objective standpoint. And that is the best that I can do. But a lot of these guys that are coming out and saying it's rigged, a lot of these guys wanting to boycott the NFL are just guys who are losing bets. Because when you bet on a game, you watch the game through the focus and through the glasses of your bet. So when your bet doesn't work out, like anybody else that has something doesn't work out, you want to blame anybody other than your poor decision to bet against the Chiefs. That's the truth. Yeah. You got anything else here? No. I think gambling has taken over. And I think that's kind of an off-shooting point that we just touched on it. Yeah, we discussed that, right? Sorry, I kind of go into a trance sometimes. I'm like, did we talk about that? Did I say that? It's just pure emotion, man. I got all the, I prepare. That's why I have the logic. But once you start going, you just let the logic go and you just go for it, you know? But here's the deal. Gambling has made the hatred for the Kansas City Chiefs grow exponentially because when you bet on games and you lose, you automatically want to find a reason why you didn't actually lose. You don't want to blame it on yourself for making a bad bet. No, you got to blame somebody else. It's got to be the referees. It's got to be the NFL. Let's boycott the league, all because you lost a bet. And that's the problem with betting taking such a hold of NFL fans. It's completely clouded their entire perspective of what's happening in the game to the point where as long as somebody tells them that their bet lost because of somebody else, they're willing to accept it. Oh, my bet lost because the referees rigged the game. That's much easier to accept than my bet lost because I'm an imbecile and decided to bet against the Kansas City Chiefs. But that's the truth. That's what actually happened. So try to boycott the team, try to boycott the game, do whatever you want. But the truth is, you're mad because you lost a bet, and maybe you should dip back into your funds at Barstool Sports and place another one. But this time, place it on the Chiefs, because then maybe you'll win. I can't help it. Only a couple more things to get to. We'll end this by hearing from Kareem Hunt. Awesome to hear from him. Awesome season. We've been talking about it all year, how proud we are of Kareem Hunt, how excited we are for Kareem Hunt. Hear from Kareem Hunt coming up here in just a few minutes. But first, Travis Kelce is without question the greatest tight end of all time. He only needs 2 receptions to tie Jerry Rice for the most receptions in Super Bowl history. So why are people trying to compare Travis Kelce to Rob Gronkowski? Gronk is the same age as Travis. They're both 35 years old, and Gronk hasn't played for years. Meanwhile, Travis Kelce just needs 2 receptions to pass Jerry Rice as the most receptions in Super Bowl history because Travis isn't even competing against tight ends anymore from a historical standpoint. Tight ends, they're not even on his level. It's Travis Kelce and Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver of all time versus the greatest tight end of all time. And there isn't an argument to the contrary. I don't care what anybody says. I will not hear your Gronk arguments. He didn't play long enough. He didn't put up the right numbers, and he just wasn't as good as Travis Kelce. Because from a historical standpoint, Travis owns every tight end record, so now he has to come for Jerry Rice's. That's the dominance of Travis Kelce, and that's another reason why everybody hates on Travis Kelce, because he dominates and then he dances on you. Like, I do empathize with that. Imagine having the best tight end in the world crush you and then dance. It's got to be a demoralizing feeling, but it's not going to stop because Travis Kelce is going to go into the Super Bowl, break Jerry Rice's receptions record, and walk off with his 3rd straight Lombardi trophy. Yeah, that's all I had there. Yeah. Gronk fans are more delusional than people who think the NFL is rigged. It's true. I mean, they are. They're so delusional. Oh, my God. They're like, but Rob Gronkowski looked really good doing it. Yeah, Rob Gronkowski played stupid. That's the difference between Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce. Everybody wants to try to find a reason why Gronk was better. Gronk played dumb, but it was entertaining, right? He would always try to find contact. He would always try to run through people. Well, that's going to cut down the longevity of your career. Travis Kelce very smartly tried to avoid contact to create more yardage instead of run through contact. And that's why both of them at 35 years old are living very different lives. Gronk is 35 doing podcasts and he's on Fox, and good for him. But Travis Kelce's still playing at a top-notch level and going to another Super Bowl at 35 because he played smart. Gronk played like an idiot. He did. And it's okay. Some guys play that way. Kittle plays very similar to that. He likes to run through people. Travis Kelce doesn't run through people, so he's not as exciting to watch as Rob Gronkowski was. I will 100% give you that. Watching Gronk lower his shoulder and blast through people was awesome. It was awesome. Except when it happened to the Chiefs. But for the most part, Gronk running through people was awesome. It was great. It was really fun to watch. Travis Kelce, also very fun to watch, but he's not running over people the way Gronk was. He's playing smart. He's avoiding contact despite his size. And he does use his size from time to time, but he avoids contact more than someone like Rob Gronkowski, which is why he's been able to play it at such a high level for so much longer, because he has a higher level of intelligence. That's just a fact. He does. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to tell me Rob Gronkowski's a Rhodes Scholar and I'm wrong, but it's the truth. Travis plays a very smart game, a very cerebral game. All right, a couple more things, and then we'll get out of here with Kareem Hunt. Let's just discuss the boycott for a second. We've done it, but I can't remember exactly what I said because, like I said, I go into a different world and I'm in a trance for the majority of this show. But people want to boycott the NFL because they want to pick up their ball and go home because they can't handle the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs are so dominant that they just have to find a reason why the referees are rigging the game or why the NFL is rigging the game. It's like a toddler who lost and they go, no, they're cheating. And they want to pick up their ball, go home and say, we're going to boycott the league because we can't handle the Chiefs' dominance. Despite the litany of calls that the Bills got away with in the AFC Championship game, these clowns are going to focus on the few calls that they think the Chiefs got away with, which, by the way, they didn't. And they're going to say, we're going to boycott the NFL. Good. Do it. We don't need children in the NFL. This is grown folks' business in the NFL. And if you can't handle it, then maybe you shouldn't be around the grown folks. You can go to the kids' table at Thanksgiving and eat your little apple pies because you aren't coming over here with the Kansas City Chiefs and the big boys because that's who gets to the Super Bowl, the actual big boys. The children, well, the children get knocked out in the AFC Championship and take themselves back to Buffalo. So boycott everything you want to. By the way, my dad did boycott the Super Bowl in 1993 after the Chiefs lost in the AFC Championship game to Buffalo. He did. It was the only Super Bowl he hasn't watched. It was too painful. Montana got knocked out with a concussion, and he told me, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go watch the Super Bowl when the Chiefs got knocked out in the AFC Championship game. So in Buffalo, I get it if not watching. Everybody else, sour grapes. Get out of here. Get out of here. DC, I think people in DC will still watch it. They didn't expect to be in the NFC Championship game, and they have an incredibly bright future. So I don't think any Commanders fans are really salty about how this season played out. And we will end this with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt talking about being in his first Super Bowl, courtesy of Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Thought that, it went through my head for sure. I didn't know if I was going to get the opportunity to, really step back out there on the field. And also, I tried everything to, help, when I was in Cleveland, bring one there. But, look, it's not easy. And I'm grateful to be here, in this, good organization that just, got the juice.
Couldn't be happier for Kareem Hunt, man. What an incredible guy. What an incredible situation that he found himself in this season, thinking that he wasn't going to play football again. And then he ends up in Kansas City. And now he's been so good. And I posted something from last show about how the Chiefs would not be in the Super Bowl without Kareem Hunt. And that's a fact. Like, a lot of people disagreed. They're like, no, Pacheco had it. Like, Pacheco didn't play most of the year. And after coming back from his broken leg, he hasn't been the same. Kareem Hunt has absolutely, without question, been the guy. And if the Chiefs didn't have him, they don't win that many games. They don't win 15 games. They might win 13 or even 12. Because early on in the season, a lot of people forget the passing game really struggled early this year. And the big difference in a lot of those games was Kareem Hunt carrying the ball 25 to 30 times. A bell cow running back who was relied upon to carry the offense and keep the sticks moving so that the defense could get a rest and the Chiefs could keep winning. Kareem Hunt carried this offense early in the season. So I understand that people might have their issues with Kareem Hunt as a person or something they did 5-6 years ago. I'm happy for a guy to get a second chance, a guy who hasn't had an issue with the law or an issue off the field since that incident in 2018. And I think maybe something in 2019, if I remember right, but not since the turn of the decade, right? So at least 5 years since Kareem Hunt's had an issue. So I think after a good amount of time, if somebody stays out of trouble, they're afforded a second chance. Kareem Hunt was afforded that second chance, and he has run with it. Now, this has been Chiefs Chase. Thank you. I'll get some business stuff out of the way. Next week, we'll have a show on Wednesday, the Midweek Blitz. This week, it was a little bit later because here's the deal. 2 weeks is a long build-up for a game. That's why every single year, by the time Super Bowl Sunday comes around, they're like, oh my God, can we just kick this thing off? Jeez, Lou, we're tired of hearing about everything. So I understand that. We'll do one show next week in the midweek. We'll do everything from Media Day and all that stuff, and we'll discuss all those storylines and get you ready with the X's and O's for the actual game. But I'm telling you, 2 weeks is just a long build-up, so cut everybody a little bit of slack because by the time the Super Bowl gets here, oh my gosh, we're always so ready for a kickoff. Remember Chiefs-Eagles 2 years ago, the Kelsey Bowl? Donna Kelsey is great. I love it. But by the time the game got there, even Donna was like, my God, can we just kick this thing off? I'm tired of doing interviews. Like, it's hard to fill 2 weeks getting ready for one game. So media's going to get really annoying over the next 12 days or whatever. How many days is it? 8 days? 9 days? What's math? Counting's hard. 9 days. Over the next 9 days, cut the media a little slack because it gets hard to try to fill time to talk about one game for 2 weeks. But we're going to have a midweek blitz next week. It's going to be an absolute blast, and we're going to have fun with every single second of it. Thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you so much for being a part of this show, being a part of this all year, or even if you've just come on recently. I so much appreciate you listening. I appreciate your interactions. I appreciate how much you guys are giving to this show, because I give you everything I can, not expecting anything. You don't have to give me anything. I do this because I love it. So the fact that you give me so much back means the absolute world to me, and I can't tell you enough how proud I am of all of you and of this show. And please, let's keep this thing going and have some fun, and let's go Chiefs. Have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll see you next Wednesday on the Midweek Blitz.